Kyurem Black is one of the hardest hitting Pokemon of all time. With a monstrous base 170 attack stat and amazing coverage to go almost perfectly with its Dragon Ice typing, on top of some other factors, this Pokemon has consistently been an insane threat, being almost impossible to switch into. However, today we are not talking about Kyurem Black. Instead, we are talking about his younger, weaker brother, Baxcalibur. Baxcalibur, like most pseudo-legendaries, boasts amazing stats and definitely has usability. During this video, I will be discussing how you can take advantage of using this Pokemon in battle. As a disclaimer, this is all singles, not just Smogon. Most of my expertise comes from the Draft League format, so there might be some things said in here that does not translate to Smogon. As I previously mentioned, Baxcalibur is an Ice Dragon type and is the pseudo-legendary of the Paldea region. It has some pretty amazing stats. It has a very high 115 HP stat, meaning that it is bulky enough to take hits and potentially set up in return. It has an absolutely insane 145 base attack stat, which makes it one of the hardest hitting Pokemon in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. It has a very average 92 defense, a somewhat usable 75 special attack, very average special defense in 86, and what would be probably considered a below average speed in 87. The obvious takeaway from this Pokemon is that it is bulky enough to not be rendered useless by having the Ice typing defensively like so many other Pokemon, and that it is strong enough to break through just about anything with the proper coverage. Its biggest downside would be its speed. Unfortunately, anything below 100 will have you underspeeding quite a few threats, but 87 is not a bad enough speed stat to where it is completely useless. You can outspeed things like Goldango and even speed tie something like Great Tusk. As far as moves go, Baxcalibur got a signature move this generation in Glaive Rush, which is essentially close combat, but slightly different in a few aspects. It is a base 120 Dragon type attack that makes you take double damage on the next attack that hits you. So, unlike close combat, the drop is not permanent. Honestly, with how much Baxcalibur comes in, clicks one button and switches out, or just sets up for the in-game to OHKO everything, this is not the worst thing in the world. It also gets some really strong ice coverage in both Icicle Crash and Ice Shard. Ice Shard really helps it make up for the lack of speed, and of course, Icicle Crash is just about the best ice coverage you could ask for in this generation with the lack of Triple Axle. It also has some really great setup options in both Dragon Dance and Swords Dance, making it have the potential for both a sweeper and just simply a breaker. Last but not least, it has coverage for most things it can't hit, such as Earthquake for Steels and Iron Head for most fairies. As I mentioned earlier, Baxcalibur does have a pretty lackluster typing, at least defensively, but thankfully it was introduced in the perfect generation. A generation where you can shed your typing defensively and get whatever typing you want. As far as good Tera types go, there are so many different options that you can run on Baxcalibur and be successful, but I'm only going to be talking about 3 today. The first is just straight up Dragon. As with almost any dual Ice type, if you simply shed the Ice typing, you are a whole lot better off, and you basically have adaptability for your other stat. This is super helpful, especially for Baxcalibur, who has his strongest move, Glaive Rush, essentially adaptability boosted. Another option I really like is Poison for Baxcalibur. It allows you to resist the fairy and fighting coverage that you were weak to previously and lets you get a new Tera Blast coverage move in Poison, which lets you hit things like Azumarill that could be super annoying for you. Poison also makes it super easy for you to at least get one Dragon Dance off, as most things do not kill you in one hit due to your great bulk. The last thing I want to talk about could be used on pretty much every Pokemon and be considered great. Fairy Tera type. Fairy is especially good on Baxcalibur for much of the same reason as the Poison typing. It allows you to set up in the face of dragons, which currently run rampant with things like Garchomp and Dragapult everywhere. Only downside to Fairy on Baxcalibur would be that there are a pretty good amount of Steel types running around and they can still just click that Steel button on you. Now that you know the basics of what Baxcalibur is capable of, you may be wondering what Pokemon work well with it. As with Tera type, there is really an unlimited pool of Pokemon that you could slot in here that can really complement what Baxcalibur brings to the table. But I'm going to be naming 3 specific ones that I found really helpful when building with Baxcalibur. The first Pokemon I'm going to be talking about is going to be Iron Moth. Together, these two form a nasty offensive core and keep your opponent guessing to which one might be set up, if not both. Iron Moth breaks and switches into both fairies and steels that Baxcalibur does not like having to deal with, potentially making the late game a whole lot easier for Baxcalibur. The only thing this duo really struggles with would be waters, but you can patch that up with other Pokemon. Another great pairing is going to be Rotom Wash. Baxcalibur really enjoys having momentum into it, and Rotom does not only that, but also breaks waters that Baxcalibur has some level of difficulty breaking. Lastly, and probably the one I have enjoyed the most with Baxcalibur, is going to be Iron Treads. It offers a whole lot of things that Baxcalibur can really take advantage of: momentum, hazard removal, really good bulk, and a nice steel typing that can resist those fairies for you. It's also a ground that can potentially break opposing steels, though with Corviknight probably being the primary steel you're going to see, that doesn't really apply here. Next up, I'm going to go ahead and talk about some potential items that you might see on Baxcalibur, as well as a few sample teams that I have that feature Baxcalibur on them. As far as items go, there are really just a few that work super well with Bax, and that's going to be Boots and Band. They are the most common items that you will see around Baxcalibur. These are probably going to be the best items on Bax. Boots are especially nice because you are going to take a lot of damage from rocks, obviously, and that is going to make it a lot harder for you to find an opportunity to set up. Baxcalibur's bulk is good enough to where if you're at full HP, you can probably get a Dragon Dance or a Swords Dance or whatever you want off, but after those rocks, there are a lot more things that are able to pick up a KO on you. Whereas Band helps its already insane damage output become insanely overwhelming. Banded Baxcalibur paired with something like a Spike Stack team can get really out of hand really fast. Other items you may see ran on it are something like Life Orb, Dragon Fang, Never Melt Ice, or some sort of Resist Berry. As for the example teams I have for you guys, I made 3 teams that include Baxcalibur in the OU tier since Baxcalibur is UUBL. I playtested them for a lot of this morning, no matter how tilted I got, but the teams are all pretty fun. I had a pretty good time with them and they all function pretty well, and all can be found down in the description below. The first team that I do want to go over is going to be a classic DragMag team, some of my personal favorite types of teams, and whenever there's a new generation, this is typically the type of build that I go for. If you don't know, it was really popular pre-Gen 6 before fairies were introduced and dragons were just objectively broken. You see DragMag ran much less often now, but it can still be super fun to overwhelm an opponent. This team consists of both a banded Baxcalibur and a banded Dragonite, as well as a potential Tera Fire Magnezone to trap those pesky steel types. It has Lead Glamora to get some hazards up, potentially making the Bax and D-Knight in-game a little clearer, and Iron Treads as a reliable spinner and some momentum into one of your dragons. Iron Treads is super important on this team because both of your dragons are weak to rocks and you do not have another way to remove them. Lastly, and this slot can definitely be changed, I have a Life Orb mixed Iron Valiant. All things considered, this Pokemon was actually the MVP during my playtesting, and I caught a lot of people off guard that I was mixed. I think I killed 3 Great Tusks with Moonblast because they thought I was physical after I clicked knockoff on some sort of ghost type. And honestly, this team is super fun, and I highly recommend you to at least give this one a try. The next team that I made for you guys is going to be a little bit more balanced, and we're actually going to pair it with Iron Moth in this one. The idea is to get hazards up and use Iron Moth as a breaker because we are Specs Iron Moth and we are going to be set up Baxcalibur. We have Great Tusk to be an annoying spinner, keeping rocks away from our Iron Moth, which is Specs, not Boots. And we have Rotom Wash for water types that we definitely struggle with other than Rotom Wash on this team, as well as grabbing some potential momentum into Iron Moth or Baxcalibur. Clodsire is going to be here as a special sponge, and then Ting Lu is here to hazard stack as well as wall Dragapult, which did us kind of dirty otherwise. This team has 3 grounds, which is a little weird, but most of the games I played were honestly pretty competitive and I had a pretty good time with this team. Lastly, I have another more balanced team, this time featuring Dragapult as the secondary breaker. This team more so functions as a team that relies on making the right pivots and making people stuck in the vortex, volt switching and U-turning between Rotom, Iron Treads, and Dragapult, with Baxcalibur in the back to potentially clean up. Garganacl was here as a special wall to set rocks, but honestly, I don't think I ever sent it out unless I lost a game. This Baxcalibur set is going to be pretty similar to the other ones, so is the Iron Tread set, but we are going to be, I think, Iron Head on this one, because we actually want to break fairies. We have Amoonguss specifically because Azumarill gives us a hard time. And then like I said, Baxcalibur is going to be that win con in the back. During the testing for these teams, the real downside of Baxcalibur showed. It was either too slow when I was banded or didn't have the right coverage I needed for the matchup. Countless times I switched between Tera Blast Poison and Earthquake just to need the opposite one to win the game in a match. Overall, Baxcalibur is much better in Draft League than in Smogon, as you can more accurately prep and bring the moves that you need, and not lack that Earthquake, Iron Head, or Tera Blast that you desperately need. But that being said, Baxcalibur is still a lot of fun to load up and click buttons in OU. What do you think of Baxcalibur? Let me know down below, and let me know what Pokemon you want me to do next. While you're down there, go ahead and leave a like and subscribe because it would mean the world to me. I put a lot of time and effort into this video. Honestly, this is the most time and effort I've sunk into a video in a very, very long time. So you guys leaving that like, showing the support really helps me make more videos like this, because obviously everybody knows you have to be motivated to make something like this, and if I'm not motivated, I'm not going to continue to make these videos. So just let me know down below that you guys enjoyed this. Just leave a like, and that's all I need from you guys. Anyway guys, that's going to be all from me here. I really do appreciate you guys checking out this video, and I hope you enjoyed it. It's a lot more high quality than other videos on my channel, and moving forward, this might be the new normal. Thank you guys so much for watching. For now guys, this has been John Jr. signing out.